This is Assistant Professor Sanandhi Sachdeva, and we are continuing with the lectures of business communication. We have already undertaken how to write a report. Today we are talking about writing positive and negative messages. So let us start. So students, in this particular lecture we would be covering the following things. We would be covering what are the types of messages. We then would be moving to positive and neutral messages. Then we will understand how to write a positive message while we are communicating in the corporate. Then we will move on to how to write negative messages. In between we will also talk about neutral messages, and moving on we will take care of how a positive message is so influential that it actually requires a lot of hard work that has to be done when we are writing a positive message. So moving on, these are the following contents that we will be covering. Let us now understand that why do we write a message? We write a message in a corporate to communicate a lot many things. A message can be a positive message, it can be a neutral message, or it can be a negative message. We have already covered that why report writing and writing a report is so important. Today we will be uncovering the paramount role of writing a message whenever we are taking up a business communication. So students, in this part we will be understanding that whenever you are communicating a message. So whenever we are communicating, either we will be writing a positive message that is giving some kind of good news to the people who are associated, who are reading the message, or to whom the message is being given. On the other hand, students, when we talk about a neutral message communicates a content to the readers without disappointing them. So some kind of news that is being delivered comes under a neutral message. Other than that, negative message, whenever we have to do one of the toughest tasks, that is delivering a bad news, we have to frame a negative message. We have to understand that whenever we are writing a message, we have to consider the audience. Who is reading my message? What is the intention for me sending the message? So taking care of you attitude in a message while writing a positive, neutral or negative message is indispensable. Moving on, we have to understand that each kind of message requires audience orientation. So while taking care of framing a message, we have to understand that audience is very important. We have to take care that what kind of audience are we dealing with, and according to that only we will be framing a positive message or a negative message or a neutral message. Moving on, let us understand first of all what is a positive message. Any kind of message that is delivering some kind of good news to the reader, any kind of message that is highly welcomed by a reader is known as a positive message. When we talk about a positive message, we have to convey a good news to the reader. There are tactful techniques in which we have to convey the good news so that the message does not look overwhelmed message, or the reader does not get overwhelmed by reading the message. So understanding this, students, you have to understand what is the purpose of sending a positive message or what is the purpose of sending a neutral message. First of all, before we design a particular message, we have to understand the purpose. In business communication, students, whenever you are writing any kind of report, whenever you are writing any kind of letter, whenever you are submitting any kind of proposal, it is mandate to understand the purpose of that particular prerequisite of business communication. In the same manner, we have to understand that while we are writing a positive or a neutral message, what is our purpose of doing so? First of all, the purpose is answering the request for information or action. Suppose you are working in a corporate and you are required to answer certain kind of information or query that has been put up. In that particular case, you will be delivering a neutral message that will be giving the answer to the query that has been asked by maybe a client or your senior or any kind of acquaintances you're working with, any kind of people that you're working with. So at that point in time, you're answering the request for any kind of information or action. Moving on, in order to grant claims, you are framing a positive or a neutral message. Other than that, any kind of adjustment, if it has been asked from you and you're taking care of that particular adjustment, at that particular point in time you have to develop a neutral or a positive message. Moving on, announcing a good news. For example, if you are announcing somebody getting a job in a corporate, or somebody who has sent you the cover letter and the resume, you are selecting that particular individual for the next round that is going to come. So for that particular announcement of a good news, you are developing a positive message. Other than that, any kind of letter of appreciation or any kind of promotion letter that is being given in the corporate comes under framing of a positive message. Other than that, any kind of congratulatory message, any kind of message of appreciation also comes under positive message. First of all, after understanding the purpose of why we are writing a positive or a neutral message, let us move on. Whenever we are writing a positive message, students, we have to take care of three parts. Each of the message that we will frame will always have three parts: the introductory part, the body of the message, and the conclusion. Similarly, or akin to all the business communication writing tools that we use, even a message considers of three paramount parts, which is the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Let us now understand that how do we segregate the message in these three parts. First of all, students, coming to the introduction, we have to understand that the message must have a positive opening. This will attract the attention of the reader immediately. As I just gave an example to you that you attitude is must whenever we are framing a message. So the first line in any kind of message will definitely attract the attention of the individual who is reading the message. So if I talk about the introductory part, you have to take care that you must take care of the opening, which has to be positive. You have to focus upon what the reader wants to listen. Since we are focusing a lot upon you attitude, we have to understand, we have to empathize with the listener. We have to understand that if at all we would have been at the place of the listener, then what would I want to hear? In the similar manner, whenever students you are framing a message, you have to take care that what the reader wants to listen at that particular point in time. That line should be your opening line. That one strong positive statement is going to take the attention of the reader who is reading your message. The positive message can be an announcement of the promotion. It can be an appreciation that is being given to you. It can be the receiving of shipment that was delayed for a long time. So it can be any message that is making the other person or the other individual happy about a particular issue. So as we know that the introduction has to be positive, the opening lines have to be positive. Moving on, students, let us come to the body of message. Now this particular arena of the message will tell that what the message is all about. This particular arena of message will describe the context of communication. It will actually describe that what is the content that I want to communicate in my message. So taking care, students, it has to have a supportive tone, keeping in view the interest of the reader. Other than that, you have to take care of certain things whenever you are writing the body of the message. For example, a particular shipment was delayed for a long time. At that particular point in time, apologizing is one of the major arenas that is required. But other than that, apologizing is considered a no-no while you are writing a positive message. Instead, you should be apologizing only when the conditions are extreme and you understand that the client would definitely want to hear an apologizing tone. Only then the particular business will be taken forward. Other than that, apologizing should not come in the body of the particular message. Other than that, students, if you want to foster goodwill of the organization that you are working with, even then you will be putting up certain lines in the body of the messages. Now, whenever we are talking about fostering goodwill, it is a kind of communication where no direct business is involved. Since no direct business is involved, you are just fostering the goodwill of the company by talking to the client without any major reason. You are just asking whereabouts of the client, or you are just asking about how the client is doing, or you are just appreciating any action of the employee who is working in your organization. So fostering goodwill is also one of the major purpose while you write a positive message, that usually comes under the content, which is the body of the message. Other than that, students, if I talk about the conclusion of a message, it is the final statement that facilitates the closure. The final statement which is very friendly in nature, the final statement which is again very empathizing in nature, and the final statement that makes sure that a goodwill is being developed, a rapport is being developed by with the reader that you are talking with the reader who is actually reading your messages, or who is actually the intended audience in the message. Now, students, if I talk about a letter or a message which is requiring any kind of action on the side of the client, in those particular kind of messages, students, whenever the message is positive, you always have to take care that you must end the message in a manner where customer is attracted, where customer is taking certain next steps to further buy the product from your organization. You must have seen a lot of product letters, write lines like looking forward to hear from you, looking forward to make sure that you use our product, and you get overwhelmed or you get very satisfied by using our product. So these are the lines which hold extreme importance while we are concluding a positive message, because such lines attract the reader to take the next step immediately. Such lines are also recommended in a cover letter, where you tell the individual to call you for the interview or call you for the one-to-one interaction to talk about the above mentioned further. So what I want to communicate here, that conclusion is very important, because it is going to decide that what is going to be the next step in the message that you have just delivered. I hope I am clear with this particular slide. Moving forward, students, let us take care that why we are delivering a positive message. Let us take care that what are the 3 points that have to be taken care of while we are delivering a positive message. We have already learnt that we send a positive message to appreciate someone or congratulate someone, or probably to take care of the thing that has not been settled from a very, very long time. We have also understand that how do I devise that particular message when I am talking to the reader. While devising a message which is positive or neutral in nature, we have to take care of certain points. Let us now understand what are the 3 points that we have to take care of. First of all, students, you have to take care of the word you. Now, while you are writing a message, students, you are writing it for a particular individual. While you are writing a message, you must empathize and put your foot into the shoe of the reader and understand that if I am the reader, what would I like to hear? This is what we define in business communication as you attitude. Empathizing with the reader, empathizing with the customer, empathizing with the individual that you are communicating with. So this empathy, this you attitude is paramount, it is indispensable when I talk about framing a positive message. Students, while we take care of the you attitude, there are 2 more points I would like to talk about here. You have to be very polite, irrespective if the message is positive, neutral or negative. Politeness, courtesy is one of the major reasons, is one of the major tricks of business communication. If taken care of, it can do wonders. Other than that, students, you have to be bias free. It happens in the corporate a lot of time that certain kind of bias creeps in while we are communicating. So we have to understand that we require our messages, our language is required to be bias free. So being bias free while taking care of the you attitude is very, very important. Other than that, if you read the slide that I have made for all of you, emphasizing on the positive, being polite, and adopting a direct approach in the message. This is also a point that I would like to highlight in this particular context. Students, while you are communicating orally or while you are taking up written communication, do not use an indirect approach in a positive message. You always have to uncover what exactly you intend to do in a message rather than taking separate roads to reach to your destination. One road has to be taken which is very clear and away from all the obstacles. What I mean to communicate here is that you have to make sure that you take up a direct approach for a message, right? Moving on, students, the second major point of concern that you have to focus upon while framing a positive or a neutral message is your intention of strengthening the relationship, right? Whenever we are sending a positive or a neutral message, we are strengthening our relationship with the reader. For strengthening your relationship with the reader, you have to take care that you enhance the credibility of the organization that you are working with, right? What is credibility? Credibility is the goodwill. Credibility is the factor of dependability. How much the other person can depend on you, how much the other person considers you credible in a particular situation. You might have seen certain organizations having a lot of credibility. Once they announce something in the market, people start trusting that particular product. People trust a lot of products for their children. You might have seen a lot of companies doing very well in the children product. What is the company having that the other companies are not having? Not pointing out any particular brand, the company is having credibility, students. The company is a very, very dependable company. So whenever you are actually framing a positive or a neutral message, students, you have to take care that you are strengthening your relationship with the readers. You are strengthening your credibility. You are enhancing the goodwill of the organization that you are working with. Other than that, you also have to make sure that you use appropriate language. There has to be an appropriate use of language. Any message which is full of grammatical errors, which is not properly formatted when it comes to written communication, is one message that is not appreciated in the business world. So while you are communicating or framing a message orally, which is positive or neutral in nature, you have to take care that it is away from all the grammatical errors, and the language that has been used in the message is extremely appropriate, taking care of the reader in concern. Moving on, students, the third point that you have to take care of while you are framing a positive or a negative message, you are also responding to a claim at times. Like I gave you an example that a shipment got delayed, and at that particular point in time you are telling the customer that the shipment is now on the way. You are responding to a claim or any kind of insurance claim that keeps on happening in the business world. So this is the third point of concern, that whenever you are responding to a claim in a positive manner, the claims are to be responded in a very, very positive manner. By claiming that the fault, you should not talk a lot about the fault. You should talk about how the fault is being solved. Never ever blame the customer. Always be clear with the fact that while you are framing a positive message, never blame the customer. Other than that, do not be direct. In this particular case, do not take any names from the organization because of whom the shipment got delayed. You are going to apologize for the mistake that has happened on behalf of the company, and then you are going to talk about the resolution, how the particular thing has been resolved, rather than focusing a lot upon the mistake that has just happened. So while responding to the claims, you have to take care that never imply that the customer is at fault. Do not exaggerate the matter. Just talk about the solution that the company has been able to attain in this particular point in time. So I hope I am clear about the three areas of concern while we are framing a positive or a neutral message. If I take you forward, now I am talking about negative messages. If I talk about negative messages, these messages are very, very tough to deliver, students, because you are communicating something which is very, very unwanted to the reader. So at that particular point in time, you also have to focus upon you attitude, and you have to think that if I would have been the reader, how would I have felt? Giving you an example, if you are rejecting an individual and not selecting him for the interview, you do have to write the reason for that. At that particular point in time, you are framing a negative message. So while you are framing the negative message, you have to take care that the response that you will elicit is going to be negative, because of course you are giving a negative news, so the response that is going to be elicited is going to be negative. So at that particular point in time, you have to use certain buffers. Now what are buffers? Buffers are certain kind of inputs, certain kind of lines that you put in your negative message, so that the impact of the negative message is deteriorated. So you are deteriorating, or you are lessening down the impact of the negative message. That is very important while we are writing a negative message. Quickly taking you to one very important line here: a no now does not mean a no forever. You have to take care that while you are communicating to the reader, you have to make the reader understand that right now your loan might be rejected. Right now your application is not very powerful for this particular, or not very suitable for this particular profile. But a no now does not mean a no forever. Probably after taking up certain more courses, or after upskilling yourself, you are best suited for this profile. So you have to make sure that such kind of things are put in a negative message, so that it does not completely dishearten the individual who is reading your message. Moving on, students, why you are taking up a negative message, why you are framing a negative message? You are conveying a message which is negative in nature. You are trying to gain the acceptance for the message. You are trying to maintain a maximum amount of goodwill, since you are communicating a negative message. You are trying to reduce the need of future correspondence, because you are rejecting a thing. So you are trying to resolve the query, as well as you are giving the negative message at the same point in time, and you are trying that the future correspondence on the same should be less, or should not be there. Examples: purpose can be termination of employment, refusal of a request, giving negative performance review, rejecting a job application, communication in crisis, that while you are communicating something which is negative to the media, to the world around. So everything comes under a negative message. Moving on, students, while you are taking care of framing a negative message, you should always use an indirect approach. Indirect approach always minimizes the effect, the impact of a negative message. So you must take care that you should use certain kind of buffers. For example, an appreciation buffer. For example, if I say thank you for applying to the education loan, but for certain reasons, or for because of certain company policy, so and so. If I take care of the agreement buffer, over here we can say that the pandemic is actually played a havoc for all the jobs, considering the following circumstances, so and so. So you should always use some common buffers. Quickly moving on, students, again writing a message. Negative message will have an introductory part. It should always have a buffer and have a positive sentence along with it. The body part should explain the negative message that you actually want to deliver, and the conclusion, students, is very important, because over here if you write an uncertain conclusion, the query would come again. So it has to be a certain conclusion with a positive statement. Ending it with a positive statement is very important. Students, you should be sensitive to the feelings of others. You should use you attitude. Language has to be polite. Language has to be bias free. Ethical standards should be very high. Negative phrases should not be used. You should strengthen the relationship. You should de-emphasize the negative news and emphasize the positive buffers. That is all about today's lecture, students. I hope you are clear with how we write a positive, a neutral and a negative message. Thank you so much.